Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, September 29th, 2014 regular meeting of the Marquette City Commission to order. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Your Honor. Commissioner Kimbenzi?
Here.
Commissioner Campana? Here. Commissioner Coyne?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Ryan?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse? And Mayor Nemi.
Here. Thank you, City Clerk. Next item is note of any agenda changes. We do have one change on the consent agenda. There's a check reimbursing myself for travel to the Michigan Digital Conference. That should be taken off the consent agenda and approved separately from the rest of the consent agenda. And any other changes that any commissioners say? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I'd like to add a short report from the Transportation Subcommittee.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Commissioner Coyne? Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Stonehouse, second by Commissioner Coyne. The attorney, we don't really have to vote on that, do we? Or okay. So we'll add that as item number 15. And Commissioner Kimbenzi?
I'd like to pull item 6D off of the consent agenda.
Okay. That is the Upper Peninsula Community Rowing Club lease, item 6D. That will be as item 16 then.
I also have some revisions to the regular meeting September 8th I'd like to include.
The minutes? Okay, hold on one second. Let me get this. You want to do those when we do the consent agenda, or the changes? Okay. Any other changes to the agenda, Commissioners? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move the motion, the agenda be approved as amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Campana? Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Commissioner Campana, to approve the agenda as amended. All commissioners in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any commissioners opposed, please say no. The motion is passed unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is announcements. I won't read through them, but we have the same, pretty much the same litany of vacancies on our boards and commissions. And I again implore people to go to the city's website. We have a nice PDF file there that you can fill out. It's an application to apply for boards and commissions. You can submit the file electronically, or you can print it out and bring it into the city manager's office or the city clerk's office. But again, I would encourage citizens to volunteer. We've got a number of openings, and they're available on the city's website. If you look at the clerk's office, I believe you can get a link to the openings on boards and committees. This is an important part of operating the city. We rely on these boards and committees to give us advice, and there's some that have statutory authority. So again, I implore people to step up and volunteer. The next is we have a public hearing on the Michigan Community Development Block Grant funding for the 2014 winter freeze damage. City Clerk, do you have some background material on this first?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. The City of Marquette submitted the Part 1 application for a Michigan Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, requesting funding of $1,205,609 with matching funds of $212,754 coming from the City of Marquette. Based on the CDBG review of the city's Part 1 application, the city may be eligible for CDBG funding not to exceed $481,267. The next step in the process is for the city to hold a public hearing on the Part 2 application, and following the public hearing, pass the attached resolution in support of the grant funding and authorize the mayor to sign the Part 2 application. Fiscal effect: there is no fiscal effect with this action. Recommendation, after the public hearing, pass a resolution in support of the Michigan CDBG funding for the 2014 winter freeze damage and authorize the mayor to sign the Part 2 application. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. I'll now open the public hearing on the Michigan Community Development Block Grant funding for the 2014 winter freeze damage. Are there any citizens who wish to address us on this matter? Does anyone wish to address the commission in the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this item? Commissioner Ryan?
I just hit my keyboard. I move we pass a resolution in support of the Michigan Community Development Block Grant funding for the 2014 winter freeze damage and authorize the mayor to sign the Part 2 application.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, anything further?
Well, it's just important we pursue all the funds we can. Obviously, we spent a tremendous amount of money. We can show that we spent at least $1.2 million, and any reimbursement we can get, even though it's far less than we had hoped to receive, is beneficial for the city.
Commissioner Reynolds, anything further?
Nope, Don said it perfectly.
Okay. Any other commissioners comment on the Community Development Block Grant application? Seeing none, it's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds, to approve the resolution for the Michigan Community Development Block Grant funding for the 2014 winter freeze damage. All in favor say yes.
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 Anyone opposed say no. The motion is passed unanimously. The next is a couple of presentations. If Ben and Bella Feliciano would meet me at the podium up here, please. Welcome. These are Youth Leadership Awards from the UP Children's Museum. This is to Youth Leadership Award presented to Ben Feliciano, Outstanding UP Children's Museum Guardian of WOW. And what does WOW stand for? Wow. You want to help us out, Jim?
World of Wonder.
World of Wonder. Well, that's great. Ben, we appreciate your service. We congratulate you on your Leadership Award, and we have a certificate to present to you. Bella, we have the same to you, a Youth Leadership Award presented to Bella Feliciano, Outstanding UP Children's Museum Guardian of WOW, World of Wonder. So again, thank you for your service to the museum, and here is a certificate. Would either of you youngsters like to say something to the crowd, or maybe Jim will speak on your behalf?
We were walking in and wondering whether this was the first such presentation. It was the year 2000 when Mayor Sciotto was having his last meeting, and my daughter was here. She was about 2.5, and we were presenting an Explainer of the Quarter award then, and we had cake. Where's the cake? There should be cake every time there's an Explainer of the Quarter award. A year ago we turned the program into the Guardians of WOW, and it's turned from 35 youngsters now to 78 who volunteer at the Children's Museum. And we've had and so I was thinking of the long connection that this has been, so bless you and thank you. And Ben and Bella have been volunteering at the museum midweek days. They're able to do that, and thanks to Mum and Dad over there. And we have a much longer association than just Ben and Bella, and I wanted to appreciate that too from you two. And so it's going well. We've made a game out of volunteering. What you don't know is the mayor is an honorary griffin. And so I'm a gnome. And we have unicorns and pixies. I'm not saying which is which here. And so we've made a game out of volunteering, and it's interactive and it's more fun. And thank you for letting us continue this.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, Ben and Bella, for your service to the museum. We certainly appreciate it. Okay, the next presentation is the Rotary Youth Exchange Scholar, Marilee Kirchner. Would you please come up? This is a certificate of achievement presented to Marilee Kirchner, Rotary Youth Exchange Scholar, and we welcome you to Marquette from Germany.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I am Marilee Kirchner, and I'm from Germany, and I'm here with Rotary, and yeah, I stay with the Lighters, right there. And so far I'm here for 1.5 months, and Marquette is really beautiful. I really like it here, and I enjoy my time. And yeah, now I'm here because of my U.S. government class, because we have to do an assignment, and yeah, it's a great opportunity that I can be here, and yeah, with Rotary. And yeah, I am attending Marquette Senior High School, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda are presentations. City Clerk, would you read or proclamations, excuse me, not presentations, the proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Whereas our community has come together in a collaborative manner to help victims of domestic violence, and whereas the goal of our community is to support efforts to educate the public about issues of domestic violence, and whereas several local churches and concerned citizens in our community have been involved in working together to organize ways so as to avoid duplication of services and to be sure all the services which are needed were made available in our community. And whereas although we are proud of what we have been able to accomplish, we also know that we cannot make the kind of fundamental social changes necessary to stop the violence in our community without the help of many more devoted workers. Now, therefore, I, Robert Niemi, Mayor of the City of Marquette, proclaim October 2014 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and further extend appreciation and recognition of the 40th anniversary of the Marquette Women's Center, dated this 29th day of September 2014, and signed Mayor Robert Niemi.
Thank you, City Clerk. The second proclamation is Fire Prevention Week for October 5th through the 11th, 2014. Would you please read the proclamation?
Yes, Your Honor. Whereas the City of Marquette, Michigan is committed to ensuring the safety and security of those living in and visiting Marquette, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires kill more than 2,300 people in the United States in 2012, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 365,000 home fires. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half, and whereas 3 out of 5 home fire deaths result from fires in properties without working smoke alarms. And whereas when smoke alarms should have operated but did not do so, it is usually because batteries were missing, disconnected, or dead, and whereas Marquette's residents should install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home, and whereas the city fire department operates a grant-supported free smoke detector and battery program for households with residents 65 or older or 14 years and younger, and whereas Marquette's residents should install smoke alarms and alert devices that meet the needs of people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and whereas Marquette's residents who have planned and practice a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and whereas the 2014 Fire Prevention Week theme, Working Smoke Alarms Save Lives, Test Yours Every Month, effectively serves to remind us that we need working smoke alarms to give us the time to get out safely. Therefore, I, Robert Niemi, Mayor of the City of Marquette, do hereby proclaim October 5th through the 11th, 2014 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city, and I urge all people of Marquette to test their smoke alarms at least every month by pushing the test button, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Marquette Fire and Emergency Services during Fire Prevention Week 2014. Signed, Robert Niemi, Mayor.
Thank you, City Clerk. The next on the agenda is public comment. Comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. And as I've mentioned before, we do have our new lighting system. The timer will count down from 3 minutes. At 1 minute, the yellow light will illuminate. At 30 seconds, the yellow light will start flashing. And when time's expired, the red light will illuminate, and people are expected to end their comments. So, anyone desiring to address the commission, please state your name and physical address.
Hi, I'm Neil Jandron from Marquette. First of all, I want to thank all of you.
Address, Mr. Jandron?
425 West Ohio, Marquette. First of all, I want to thank all of you people for volunteering your thankless job that you have in the city. I think you do a phenomenal job, unbeknownst to some other people. But I just got a couple questions about the recycling program that the city is doing. This probably looks familiar to some of you. The green tag with the wrong material. Twice I've had that on my collectibles, and twice I've brought it to Waste Management, and twice I've been told there was nothing wrong with it. About a month ago, I took a ride up 7th Street from one end, from Jacob Eddy up to the other end. Counted 17 full containers with this tag on them. In my neighborhood on West Ohio, there are at least 7 people I know have quit recycling because of the sorting. I think you're losing a lot. I think the city is losing a lot of money. I've talked to a couple commissioners, I talked to a couple people on the landfill authority, and I honestly don't think either one of you know how much is being recycled. It was my understanding the city was supposed to be getting 60% of the fund from the recyclables, and nobody in the city knows, nobody's gotten $1 yet. And I'm just wondering, where's the money going? Or is it being recycled? I have 5 young grandchildren, and I think recycling is the thing of the future. I think it's very, very, very important. I think a lot of it's being thrown in with the regular garbage, which is sad. So I think the public needs to be made aware of how important it is for the future. And I think you people need to find out how much time I got left.
1 minute.
1 minute. I think you people need to find out how much money is due the city from Waste Management. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. And I'll jump to one other thing. I would point to Mr. Verito and ask that you please show some respect to these people by calling them Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. Well, they call you Mr. Verito.
Mr. Jandron, would you address us, please?
There's also a doctor sitting up here who should be addressed as doctor.
You can only address us during public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Richard Pura. I'm a retired dentist from Marquette. I live at 494 Blemhuber Avenue, and I own a business at 708 Chippewa Square. We're excited and pleased to see that the city has entered into an agreement with Duke LifePoint Hospital, and that they have decided to stay within the city. As a group of owners of businesses employing about 200 people at Chippewa Square, we recognize the impact that the new hospital will have in all of our businesses, particularly with the request by the hospital for the addition of a roundabout along US 41 at their entrance, and that may necessitate a change to the Grove Street intersection. The reason I am here is to represent Chippewa Square to assure that we have continued access to our businesses. The reason we purchased land at Chippewa Square in the first place was because of the access to US 41. I'm sure you can understand the importance of preserving an acceptable and convenient way for the public to get to those businesses at Chippewa Square. I also serve as the president of the trustees of Chippewa Square Association. Our trustees are ready and willing to meet with the city, MDOT, or the Federal Highway Department, and to be a full partner in planning the best option to continue providing convenient access to Chippewa Square, handling traffic from 7th Street and Fisher Street Extended, and ultimately access to and across US 41. We believe that there can be a solution to everybody's concern and to accommodate the requests of Duke LifePoint's exciting new construction with the cooperation and dialogue of the needs of all of the parties concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pura.
Hi, my name is Scott Richards. I'm a civil engineer. I work up the street here at GEI Consultants.
Your address?
109 West Baraga, 2 blocks down the road. You may have noticed we recently moved into the old co-op building. A lot of folks see the co-op on Washington Street now, and wanted to first of all just tell you a little bit about GEI. We're growing, and thence the reason to the need, I should say, for a little larger real estate. I'm here tonight on agenda item 6N. That's the water filtration plant water intake. We were pleased to submit a proposal for the city's consideration. We offer some unique attributes in our project team. We're local. We would manage the project here locally. Folks here would be working on it locally. We do have a team that we've assembled, including outside professionals too, experienced explicitly in Great Lakes water intake structures. We've also included a underwater dive team for the study, the evaluation, and the shop that we have down the street has folks that are experienced in geotechnical and structural marine evaluations. So in consideration of all those items, we appreciate your request for us to submit the proposal and hope that we can be of service. And when this agenda item comes up, if there's any questions that folks might have, I'll be here to respond. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Drake Woodward, 951 Highland Drive, president of the Upper Peninsula Community Rowing Club. Here on item 6D, I think it became 16 maybe, and Sally Davis, our vice president, is here as well.
Thank you, Ms. Woodward.
Bob Kimbenzi, 306 North 6th Street, and I guess that's the question. Is item 6D pulled off of the consent agenda?
Yes, it's now item 16.
Okay, I'd like to speak on that. And I want to say Dr. Pura here, it's pretty darn important what he had to say about the Grove Street intersection. When I saw Duke LifePoint's plans, that was the first thought that came to my mind, putting a viaduct over the bypass at Grove Street. How are you going to access all of those business properties there? You know, and Duke LifePoint comes rolling in with their probably their high-priced consultants, attorneys, et cetera, and I just hope that we're very careful with them. We need a hospital, but let's not give away the store. So just keep that in mind as we go through this process. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbenzi.
Frank Jeff Verito, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. I speak on item 10. These are my opinions. July 29, 2013, you were told, please build the boathouse near the current storage area. Advantages are an easy walk to the beach, no trees to destroy, even better harbor protection, and rerouting the trail east. The wooded location takes the lakeshore from the citizens. We cannot allow a facade to ruin the park's natural ambiance, all to benefit a minority user of our mixed-use resource. Let them site it farther north on the property. August 12th, you were warned. 2 rowers told me they've wanted their boathouse near the current area all along, but were asked to consider the wooded location. Rowers have no desire or incentive to leave their current site at the safest, best possible location, where a boathouse and an observation platform can be built into a hill, but without destroying prime woodland. This was repeated August 26th, plus at the current site is the most logical. January 13th, you were told, entities lose sight of the big picture for their personal causes. Why destroy a wooded location when a perfect open spot lies nearby? February 10th, I told you, why destroy trees for a boathouse in violation of task force recommendations when suitable open space lies just north? Stop compromising on opportunities. Note how this relates to NEMI's September 8, 2014 statement that all the scrutiny will end up with a better product. We'll have a better facility. Stonehouse mentioned the opportunity to do it differently. This indicates your utter failures to have done your homework last May, careless beyond sin. And the rest was history. At your March 10th hearing, several of us told you the attributes of the current site in great detail. March 31st, I accused you of purposely neglecting to explain why the current preferred spot wasn't considered, bolstering Laurie's claim that your choice was political, not based on sound land use and lakeshore preservation. April 14th, I chastised you again for failing to address the validity of the current spot where all objectives are better fulfilled. May 12th, in either the lease agreement, you were told in greater detail yet. All this in advance of your vote. What part of that English didn't you understand? The perfect place, right there, yet you doomed a woodland until your own cohorts threatened to sue you. Their influence forced you to rescind your vote, during which you failed to apologize or offer any explanation for the needless division and dissension you caused. You took no responsibility for your major blunder, which Coyne called trivial. Why have public comment when you're not willing to use it? You're too intertwined in a filthy world of who's who instead of what's right. Your mishandling of the boathouse proves the point, as does your treatment of participants by who's who. Let us delve into the record to determine who's truthful and who isn't.
Thank you, Mr. Barito. Anyone else desiring to address the City Commission? Okay, seeing none. Now, let's see, we have the consent agenda. We did have 2 people who wanted to address item number 16. We'll move that to item number, just before item number 7. And we'll move item number 10 to item number 8. I'll repeat it. The rowing club issue will be the first new business item, number 7, in lieu of the fuel depot agreement. And the number 10, which is the solid waste collection services contract, will be item number 8. It'll push the fuel depot agreements to 9, 10, and 11. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with the consent agenda? Commissioner Ryan?
I move the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Okay. Is there a second motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse? Pardon? No, that was the amendment. We withdrew that from the consent agenda. We dealt with separately. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, seconded by Commissioner Stonehouse to approve the consent agenda. Anything further, either commissioner, on the consent agenda? Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Sarah?
I just have some additional comments I'd like to put in the August or the September 8th regular meeting.
Yeah. Please proceed.
I would like them to go under the UP Rowing Club. Would you like me to read them?
Maybe paraphrasing it, unless they're, whichever you prefer. Up to you.
All right. It is in regards to me asking staff questions. I had in there, Mike Angeli sent an email to the city commissioners before the August 18th work session giving us an overview of the proposal next to the Hampton Inn. And I have a few questions for him and staff. Commissioner Kim Benzie repeated Mike Angeli's August 18th, 2014 email comment that, quote, "It will have public restrooms which will be available similar to the rest of the city park restrooms," end of quote, and followed by asking him what will happen to the current public restrooms located about 100 feet away at the current Founders Landing Pavilion site. Mike Angeli replied that the new boathouse needed bathrooms for zoning purposes. Commissioner Kim Benzie commented that the taxpayers will now have 2 sets of public bathrooms within 100 feet of each other at Founders Landing. Commissioner Kim Benzie repeated Mike Angeli's August 18th, 2014 email comment that, quote, "A public deck will be created on top of the structure," end of quote, and stated that if the building is level with the road, that the community would be looking through a railing as they drive by. Commissioner Kim Benzie repeated Mike Angeli's August 18th, 2014 email comment that, quote, "Public off-street parking will be created adjacent to Lakeshore Boulevard," end of quote, and I asked who is paying for the relocation of the road, the relocation of the bike path, and the additional 7 new parking spaces. Mike Angeli replied that all costs associated with this building will be paid for by the UPCRC. Commissioner Kim Benzie repeated Mike Angeli's August 18th, 2014 email comment saying, quote, "City engineering concerns will need to be addressed." Paraphrase staff function, quote, and, quote, "Water sewer questions will need to be addressed," end of quote, and I asked specifically what those concerns were. Mike Angeli replied that they were in the form of setbacks and variances. Commissioner Kim Benzie then asked Kurt Goodman what the cost of the water and sewer pump was going to be in order to pump waste up to the street level. Kurt commented that he did not know the appropriate cost, but that the pump house would have to be wired with an alarm system to communicate with our water treatment facility center. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kim Benzie. Barring any objections, those corrections will be made to the minute. Commissioner Kim Benzie, would you pass down to the clerk so you can incorporate them? Maybe if you could even send them electronically, we'd probably appreciate that. Anything else on the consent agenda? Any comments by the motion makers?
No comments.
Hearing
Well,
none?
I would like to make one
Yes.
comment, Ewan. One of the people during public comment referred to a proposal. I'm not sure they understand the process, but that proposal is on the consent agenda, so it will not be debated here tonight. But it has to do with the water filtration plant intake evaluation. And basically, the information provided to the commission is that the proposal was 5 engineering firms bid on the proposal. Those proposals were evaluated by the Public Works Director, the Water Plant Supervisor, and Public Works Superintendent. And then there were bid amounts that were listed, and the contract is being awarded to Fishbeck, Thompson, Carr, and Huber of Grand Rapids, Michigan, which was the low bidder and the company which had the highest score on the evaluation.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. You moved to approve the consent agenda, correct?
Yes.
I missed 2. I didn't know 2 seconded. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the check reimbursing the mayor for travel expenses. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, please say no. The motion passed unanimously. Now we have the item of the check reimbursing the mayor for travel expenses. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I move we approve the mayor's travel expenses.
Okay. The amount is $28, by the way.
$28.
Commissioner Coyne, thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, seconded by Commissioner Coyne to approve the check to the mayor for $28 for travel expenses. further comment, Commissioners?
I just think it might be worth, again, for people watching who don't realize how we go through all these machinations, that there is a purpose to them. And that is, we usually wind up paying $500,000 or $600,000 in bills, yet we have to take out a $28 check and handle that separately. The reason we do that is so the person receiving funds is not voting to pay themselves. So this way that the mayor is able to, in this instance, vote to spend the larger amount of, I don't have it right on my fingertips, but
$2 million.
$2 million. And this way he gets a chance to vote on that, and he can abstain on this vote as to whether or not he gets paid $28. So it's a good system. It works. It keeps it honest, but that's why we go through it.
Thank you for the explanation, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Coyne, anything further? Okay. Again, it's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, seconded by Commissioner Coyne to approve the reimbursement to the mayor of $28. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed, please say no. The motion passes with one abstention, unanimously except for one abstention, myself. The next item on the agenda is new business. The first item will be the lease for the Upper Peninsula Rowing Club. City Clerk, would you please read the background information on that?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. At the September 8th, 2014 Marquette City Commission meeting, the City Commission approved the location for the UPCRC facility, as well as directed staff to complete specific functions. One of the functions was to direct the city attorney to prepare a lease between the city and the UPCRC for use of city property located at Founders Landing. The lease has been prepared and attached for the City Commission review and approval to schedule a public hearing on October 14th, 2014. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, move the lease to the October 14, 2014 City Commission meeting and schedule a public hearing. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. The two citizens who desire to address this item, Ms. Kelly Drake Woodward.
Thank you, Your Honor. I really just was going to make myself available for questions. I'm not sure proactively what to say, not knowing maybe what the concerns are. So.
Okay. So if we have questions, we'll avail ourselves of the resource. Mr. Cambenzi?
Bob Cambenzi, 306 North 6th Street again. I looked at the September 8th meeting, and you had, I don't know, maybe a half-hour discussion on this item. And finally, Commissioner Coyne made a motion, and he didn't read the whole motion, but basically he said it was the recommendation from Acting Manager Mike Angeli. So I went back and I got item number 6 from September 8th. Recommendation, rescind the motion adopted at the City Commission meeting of March 10th, 2014, and consider granting the UPCRC a 5-year lease for a portion of the Founders Landing property on the real estate shown in Exhibit A. Direct the police chief to initiate a rezoning petition and subsequent planning process for the real estate, and direct the city attorney to prepare the lease with terms and conditions to be approved by the City Commission, which terms shall include but not be limited by the following. 1, the city shall become the owner of all improvements made to the premises. 2, the UPCRC shall assume all operation of and maintenance and capital improvements to the boathouse and all other improvements on the premises. 3, the boathouse or portions thereof shall be available to the public during hours of normal operation of the boathouse. It was approved 6-1. That's word for word the recommendation. Now you have a lease agreement here. Item 2 on the first page of the lease agreement, prepared by Mr. Keefe. Term of lease. The term of this lease shall be for 25 years from the date of this agreement. However, it shall terminate in 5 years if they don't build the boathouse by that point in time. So that's one point. I mean, why are we proposing a 25-year lease now? I would think that once, if in fact they get the money and build the boathouse, at that point in time, you need to sit down and negotiate another lease for the operation of this. I mean, the general terms that you've talked about for at least 6 or 8 months now, I can see those being put in here, but there's so many things missing in this. I mean, you talk about the operation of the facility. They aren't going to pay any rent. They can sublease this, or they can, what, keep the whole thing for themselves? I mean, this is so vague. I can't imagine any one of you commissioners, if this were your own property, signing a lease like this. So I know this, you know, you're putting this 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now for a public hearing. But I think this, what's presented to us right now, is pretty poor. So I think you need to take a good look at that. And you know, a lot of times you say, is something really ready for a public hearing, or does this need to be tuned up a little bit before you ever get to the public hearing? Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Cambenzi. Commissioners, what is your desire with this item? Commissioner Ryan?
I'd like to move the lease to the October 14th City Commission meeting and schedule a public hearing.
We need a public...
That's what the issue was.
We don't need a hearing on the lease, do we, or do we? The public hearing would be for zoning that we would set at that point?
I'm reading directly from the recommendation.
For a public hearing, but
yeah, we don't
regular
require
agenda
public
items
hearings
will be discussion.
There must be an error in the recommendation.
Well, what are we scheduling a public hearing on then?
It's really not a public hearing, and I think that was just an oversight on the agenda supplement. It'll come before the commission as a second reading, just like any other item. It'll be open for discussion, and I suppose audience participation at some point.
If the planning commission entertains the rezoning issue and makes a recommendation to us at that meeting, we would then have to set a public hearing for the 28th.
Yeah,
Right?
but not on the lease itself.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where the confusion arose. That it was anticipated that we would be setting a public hearing at that time, along with approving the lease. Commissioner Coyne?
I want to take issue with what the city attorney just said, that, or question, not take issue, but does a lease have to have a second reading? There are no second readings for agenda items.
Well, what I meant to say is that under our new charter, a lease cannot be adopted at the meeting it is introduced.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing tonight.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
So there's no action required.
Yeah, there would be action required to schedule it for action at the next meeting. Otherwise, it's going to sit in limbo forever and ever and ever.
Well, I move we schedule it for action at the next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Coyne? Okay. Anything further, Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that Mr. Cambenzi's comments aren't appropriate, and they should be taken into consideration. You know, I think these are all important issues, but the only item we had before us tonight was not to re-debate the whole subject that we spent a long time debating at the last meeting, but to actually bring something before the community and the committee to discuss and debate. And so that's really what we're doing tonight, is we're not debating the issue, we're scheduling it for a date when it will be heard. Confusing as that sounds.
I fully agree with that. That's what the motion is, and the discussion ought to be directed in that regard.
Any other commissioner? Commissioner Cambenzi?
Well, I have some questions about the lease specifically that I'd like to ask staff and city attorney. So basically, the lease we have before us that we are putting on another agenda assumes that the zoning will be changed, because we have not had a planning commission meeting where that has been considered yet. I don't know who I'm asking, I guess.
Just add my timeline here. Hang on a second. The second reading of the lease will be on the 14th of October, and the Planning Commission will meet on October 7th, so we should have a decision or opinion before that meeting from them.
So right now, it's safe to assume that we're going to rezone this parcel of property because everything in the lease would require that parcel to be rezoned, correct?
Correct.
Looking at letter A, the legal description, there is no legal description other than Exhibit A. The community goes out and looks at Exhibit A. It's a preliminary site plan. The questions I asked earlier, actually at the last meeting, from my comments that I wanted to get put into the minutes, said all improvements that needed to take place to make this project happen would be borne by the UPCRC. There is a note on the agenda, Exhibit A, preliminary site plan, that says, Kelly, this, I'm assuming drawing, is based on the boundary drawing you sent over from me yesterday. Understand that my drawing is based on air photo and not on survey. But just the same, everything seems to fit well. Note that the relocated bike path and the parking is outside of the boundary. So I think if they are going to pay for the parking lot and the bike path relocation, that needs to specifically be written in this lease. Otherwise, it will probably fall on the taxpayers. Terms of lease, that was already addressed. Rent. Leasee shall not be required to pay rent. So if there's no rent, who controls the rent? Who controls the pricing? Does this go to a committee? What do they charge? And who keeps the money? All of a sudden, this doesn't sound like a public building anymore. Use of the leased premise, 4.1. Leasee shall use the premise for water-oriented recreation only. What does this entail? Number 5, terms related to construction. Leasee agrees to develop at leasee's sole expense architectural and engineering plans for the boathouse to be constructed on the premises required to meet the specific needs of leasee for leasee's intended uses. Leasee shall be responsible for all design, bidding, financing, and construction of the boathouse, and leasee shall obtain leaseor's written approval of such plans and specifications prior to the beginning of any construction activity. So it sounds to me like we will have to use city staff to review the drawings. I don't think many people in Marquette build houses with flat roofs. We are now having not only a flat roof, but a green flat roof that will be a city building, city-owned, should it be built. And my question is what checks and balances do we have as a city using our staff to verify that we do want to invest in this building? Where's the protection for the taxpayers in someone else designing the specific needs of this building? 5.2, leasee shall not begin construction until satisfactory evidence of adequate funding has been provided by the City Commission and City Commission has approved the commencement of construction. How much is enough? And what about the grants? They've talked about the DNR Trust Fund grants. They've talked about the Waterways grants. These are grants that we have earmarked 5 years out for Presque Isle, for Tourist Park, for all of our other parks and rec facilities. And I think the public needs to know if those grants will be included and this group allowed to actually use those grants to build the boathouse. Number 6, conditions after construction is complete. Leaseor shall have no obligation to provide financial support, financial maintenance, or financial improvements to the premise. This means that the city doesn't pay for anything. That's great, but what happens if this group can't pay for it? What happened to the Shiras pool? The taxpayers paid for it, and eventually we tore it down or got rid of it. But in this case, to have a nice building on the lake, what I'm guessing might happen is that we sell it to a private owner. This is $1 million piece of land, should it be for sale. 6E, in the event the leasee does not adequately operate, maintain, clean, or repair premise, leaseor, upon 30 days written notice, may terminate this agreement. Again, in 30 days, I doubt we will terminate the agreement, and it will fall on the taxpayers. 6I, the building located on the premise shall be kept open for public use during the normal operating hours of the building. How much of it does the public actually have to use? The number that's been calculated is about 800 square feet, and even though the Mining Journal and the Rowing Club didn't come up with a specific figure, from the August 18th meeting, the actual square footage on the proposed building is greater than the one before, with 4,900 square feet of the 5,780 square foot building going for boat storage for the UPCRC, and 880 square feet going to the public. I think it's borderline criminal that we're even looking at a lease like this that is so unspecific and puts the taxpayers at such a risk for an investment like this. I hope that there are some major changes before the October 14th meeting. I think it's pretty presumptuous to sit here and come up with a lease before the Planning Commission has even considered rezoning this parcel of property. But to me, it just shows you what direction this project's going and the fact that we want to get it done before the next election in November. Thank you.
Commissioner Kambezi, could you provide your questions to staff so they could respond to them then?
Sure.
Thank you. Anything further from any commissioners on the lease? Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, seconded by Commissioner Coyne to refer the Rowing Club lease, Upper Peninsula Rowing Club lease, to the next commission meeting for consideration. All in favor say yes.
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 Anyone opposed say no.
No.
The motion passes 6-1. Next item is number 8, which was number 10, and that is the contract award for BP 1418 Solid Waste Collection Services Curbside Residential. City Clerk, would you read the background material on this, please?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. The current contract for solid waste collection services expires on September 30th, 2014. A notable change from the previous year's solid waste bid packs was the separation of the services into 3 main areas: residential curbside collection, municipal facility collection, and special collections. This was done in hopes of creating better competition for the bid. The term of the contract will be October 1, 2014 through September 30th, 2017. BP 14-18 Solid Waste Collection Services, Curbside Residential, focused on weekly curbside garbage and recycling collection. This bid also includes placement of recycling and organic drop-off bins at the Municipal Service Center as part of the base bid, and an option for curbside organic collection. Bid packages were sent out to 10 regional vendors, and the bids were publicly displayed and noticed. 3 responses were received, 2 local bids, and a non-bid letter were opened on August 26, 2014. A bid tabulation is attached. Fiscal effect: curbside residential collection is included in the monthly residential service fee. The bag fee is set at $1.50 per bag. over the life of the contract. The 3-year value of the contract is approximately $1,785,000. Recommendation: award the bid for nighttime curbside residential solid waste collection services to Waste Management of Michigan Incorporated at the unit prices bid, and direct the city attorney to prepare a contract. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. I would suggest that we suspend the rules for discussion on this item. Yeah. Yes. Commissioner Reynolds?
I motion we suspend.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Ryan? Thank you. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed say no. Mr. Barito, would you like to address us? No, there is no motion yet. Unless you want to wait till after the motion, you may do that.
It's up to you. Well, Frank Jeff Verito, 350 East Ridge. I do thank you for moving the items up, and these are my opinions, but I thought we usually got to speak right after the clerk was done reading the supplement. Residents are struggling with the new alternating recycling program. Weeks fly by so fast, we're having a hard time keeping track of which items are to be collected that week. I know of one person who calls the office weekly just to find out which type of items they're picking up. As a result, we see recycle bins sitting out for 7 days, waiting until the next week's pickups. This diminishes the tidiness of our community, along with the clutter of campaign signs. Another recent issue is the refusal of the garbage hauler to take glass, plastic, and metal items that are left on the proper week, but in boxes or paper bags. The company leaves people to wonder why their sorted items weren't taken and forces them to delay the recycling of those items by 2 weeks. This can lead to storage issues for those of us with limited space. In fact, many of us experience this problem anyway, especially with glass, plastic, and metal items in my case. The allotted space isn't ample enough to store 2 weeks' worth. You'd think the space allocation would balance out because the same amount of recyclables are used and recycled within the same 2-week period, but it doesn't work that way for many of us with limited space. Not all of us have spacious garages. Your contract ought to mandate the company to provide the equipment to pick up all recyclables every week so long as they're sorted by the 2 main categories. Too often in many aspects of your governing, whether land use, public processes, or even garbage hauling, you institute changes that leave us with less than what we had before. The recent recyclables change may well suit your convenience, but not the convenience of your constituents who ultimately pay for the service.
Thank you, Mr. Barito. Commissioners, what is our desire with this item? Commissioner Ryan?
Well, I wonder if we could have someone from staff give us a report on how we got to this point with the bidding. I think we might have anticipated a little more competition and didn't turn out that way. And any other facts they may want to share?
Yeah, this year we did something different this year from the prior contract about 3 years ago. In order to encourage more competitive bidding, bring in some other players, we separated the contracts into 3 different bids, one for curbside, one for special collection, and then one for city facilities. We also offered an option for daytime collection and nighttime collection. The current contractor has advantage having their own transfer facility, so they've been able to do a nighttime collection while the other ones have not been able to. By opening up to daytime, we were able to get a second bidder just to see what else is out there and offer opportunity to other contractors. And that's what you see before you tonight is a recommendation, but it is based on nighttime collection.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
There's been a lot of discussion, too, about why we had to separate, go to the 2-stream system, as they call it, I guess. Who can best address that?
I'll let Kyle work it.
Thank you. As everybody on the commission, a lot of people in the community are aware of, We've entered into an agreement, a partnership with the County Solid Waste Management Authority to construct a transfer facility. In conjunction with that agreement, this is just for recyclable materials, the city has started sending their recyclables, instead of having them taken by a third-party contractor and leaving the state where they're marketed. Those recyclables are now handled by the Solid Waste Management Authority. The city is one of 22 now, I believe, municipalities in the county that are a part of that. And that allowed us, from the front end, the plan was to keep those recyclables local, to, as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, to keep some of that revenue stream from those recyclables, I guess, available to the municipality to put back into the solid waste budget to improve the program moving forward, to increase recycling rates. And in those negotiations and in those discussions, we decided to go with the recommendation from the Solid Waste Management Authority when determining how to set that program up. They told us that the best option for handling recyclables was to go to what's called a dual stream system, where you separate out fiber products, papers, and cardboards from all of the other metal, glasses, and plastics that you get in your recyclables. It is possible to separate those in a single building on a single site. Waste Management does that currently in Wisconsin, and those buildings are extremely expensive to set up on the front end. The way to do it cheaply and the way to do it on a small scale is to do it in a dual stream system, and that's what we opted to do here.
So I think it's important for people to understand that we've had several work sessions with the Marquette County Solid Waste Authority in designing this system. You know, I understand people's concerns. It does get to be a little annoying. I know we put out a chart at one point, and I posted it on a bulletin board, and I run in and make sure that I've got the right one. But I think it's important for people to understand that, number one, recyclables have value, and that's partly driving this system. There is value that previously went to waste management. Now we're claiming those recyclables in a partnership with the Marquette County Solid Waste Authority. So the revenue generated, as you point out, will go back to the Solid Waste Authority and to the city of Marquette. Handling solid waste is very expensive, no question about that. And any way we can get our arms around that and make it more efficient, and in the process continue to provide recycling, which is very important to many people in the community, is a good thing. Under the old system, Waste Management took the recyclables, as you point out. They mixed them, but they could haul them to a facility where they could separate them later. I know a lot of people felt, well, they were just throwing them away, but they weren't, because there was value to them. And so under the new system, we will get whatever value we can from those recyclables, and we believe it's going to be significant. But it only works if we do this system. And I've said before myself, we have to, and I keep looking at you, Kyle, I'm not laying this all on your shoulders by any means, but I think we do have to do a better educational job. I mean, we just, it's one of those issues where you can talk and talk and talk and do this and do that and that, and there's still the guy next door who doesn't even know that it's happening. And I'm not particularly talking about the guy next door to my house, but probably to your house. Certainly, it's not Sarah either. But it's a tough issue, and I think we just have to work harder at it. But I think it's a good system, and I guess the other issue I would raise is a lot of people have had complaints about the way Waste Management has handled some of this. Have we put something into our contract to get them to behave a little better when it comes to how they not leave some of the garbage laying behind?
Yeah, there is some language in the requirements that we did add, definitely dealing with customer complaints. We did put stronger language in there. We do try and follow up any complaint we get. We have talked to Waste Management, and we're going to set up more of a accountability dialogue. We may meet once or twice to review any complaints. It's going to be we're definitely going to be stepping up that portion of enforcement to make sure that they abide by the contract terms. I do think you mentioned education is huge. Kyle's been working on a stronger educational campaign that we're going to roll out here as the new transfer facility, recycling facility comes into play. So definitely we do need to step up our education.
Commissioner Coyne?
In looking at the bids and so forth, the difference in nighttime and daytime collection was $40,000. And a lot of people get woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning by banging, and it seems like they always stop the truck right in front of your house and then run it and bang it and back up and just till you get up. And you know, we had this discussion, is it worth $40,000 to do that? And with the present budget situation, I guess we're going to still get waked up at 3 in the morning. This is a new thing, the two-stream. I mean, when we started, I didn't even know what two-stream meant. I had to ask them. In the contract, it's been very clear, and in the discussions negotiating the contract, was we are going to monitor them because the people are complaining. I mean, some of the things that have been done are just plain stupid and bullheaded. And if they want the contract, they have to change that method of performing. And we also have in there a way of monitoring them. And I would maybe disagree a little bit. At least a year ago, I happened to be up at 4 in the morning and looked out the window and watched the guy take my recyclables and put it right in the same thing with the garbage. So we have to monitor it because now that represents money to the city and to the landfill. And I think other, even more green cities than Marquette are now recycling compost material. And admittedly, that's hard if you live in an apartment, but if you have the ability to preserve compost, the whole point of this is, according to the landfill, we can probably recycle about 80 to 90% of our waste and thus improve the life of the landfill probably 50 years. And can you imagine how expensive it would be to resite a landfill? First of all, find a place, and secondly, how expensive it would be. So even though this is a little more of a pain in the neck, in the long run, we're saving a huge amount of money, extending the life of the landfill. And I think the education thing, it's really not that hard for the city. I have on my recycling place a little, they send out, you know, if it's one color, it's rigids, and the next color, it's fiber. How hard is that? And how hard would that be to send out, put it on the city website rather than have to have somebody call? Just turn on the website, look at it. Or have on one of the city bills we get, the sewer and water and garbage bill we get, you could put down the schedule of which color is what and when. So that's just not that hard. And it is inexcusable for some of the silly things they've done, like if your box is 4 inches over what they're supposed to be, they won't take it. Or if it's in a paper bag, they won't take it. I mean, that's got to stop. That's just plain dumb and not being a good citizen. So I think this is a good idea. It's going to take time and education, and it will save a lot of money.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
A couple of points, if I can. Why don't we just put out both streams at the same time? Why do we separate them 1 week and then another week?
Yeah, I don't, I know some cities, some larger municipalities, very large municipalities come to mind. We'll put out numerous streams, they'll put out garbage, they'll put out compost all on the same night if that's something the hauler can do. I can't speak to the specifics of it. I don't know if Kurt knows the numbers, but I do know that it would be, from a top-down perspective, considerably more expensive, considerably more work to collect both streams because you can't put them in the same truck. You're going to need to increase your fleet of collection vehicles if you're going to be picking up two separate streams of recyclables that have to be kept separate and garbage on the same night. Whereas now they can reuse, one truck picks up garbage and a single stream of recycling, and then the following week it picks up garbage and the alternate stream.
It just strikes me that to make recycling a success, we need to make it as simple as we possibly can. And the more we require people to do something on one week and not on another week, we complicate it. And we take those folks on the edge that may be wanting to recycle or maybe mixed on whether they're going to do it or not, and it falls into too hard category, as opposed to everything just goes out on the curb and you deal with it when it's there. Be that as it's said. Does our contract with them stipulate that it must be in a given size container, or why can't they put it in a bag? What's the problem?
Yeah, for like rigid, it can go in, it has to go in a rigid, fiber can go in a bag.
Well, why can't rigid go in a bag?
Because you have to separate them. It's dual stream, so you have to completely separate the two, because if you take it to the facility, it can become a contaminated load, which then means you get lesser dollar value for that recyclable material.
Pogler said it. We've met the enemy, and he's us. I mean,
Yeah.
we've just figured out ways to make simple things as complicated as we possibly can.
One thing I could add is that part of the contract is to offer 2 locations for, we have one currently at the service center, so residents can drop off their rigids and or recycle or fiber 24/7. So we do have an alternate means of disposal if the resident isn't home for that night. So we're trying to make that, offer that as an option too.
Let me offer just one comment. I would certainly be in favor of some kind of a performance bond being applied to the contract. It is inconceivable that we can leave the garbage laying in the street as the way we've had many citizens complain about. And I'm all for sitting and meeting and keeping records of problems, but somewhere the enforcement needs to be there, and it needs to be a financial bite to assure that what they're doing is reaching the expectations of our taxpayers. And I think they are so far wide of the mark now. One of the most common complaints I get as a commissioner is garbage, and how badly they pick it up and how badly they treat it. And like, Mr. Johnron said, just drive down the street after the garbage trucks go by, and it's all over the place. It's either the wrong stuff put out, or it's just, we're beating a dead can here. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Goodman, I've heard that if the person has their ridges in a clear plastic bag, the contractor does not pick them up. It seems to me that the contractor, all he needs to do is empty the bag into the thing and leave the bag behind. Is that correct, that they haven't picked up that way? And I understand you're not doing the pickup. You're just imparting the information to us. So, we don't mean to be getting down on you and putting you on the spot, other than you need to give us the information that we're seeking.
Your questions are excellent, and I thought through them a lot myself. And I guess, again, it's part of a change. We're transitioning to a new program. Again, if we keep taking something that really, if we could educate them to do it the right way, that way, hopefully the next time, it will be done the right way. So I am a little bit frustrated myself, but we'll definitely continue to work with Waste Management to improve their performance.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Coyne?
Well, being that we're picking on Kurt, I'll continue picking on you for a minute. This is about the 10th time I've asked this. Say I'm a little old lady or a single man living in an apartment, and I buy this giant $1.40 bag that takes me a month and a half to fill up, but every week I have to put, like hardly anything in it and spend $1.50 and give it to Waste Management. Why can't you have a small bag for one person household rather than spend $1.50 every week and then a family of 4 fills up 3 of them? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. And now is the time in negotiating with them, because they've refused to do that in the past. to have a bag that's a reasonable bag for a reasonable one-person household, or even a two-person household. Why? Why do they refuse to do that?
I wasn't aware of that, but I will definitely follow that up.
Well, they have a long record of saying no to that, and there's no reason other than their own. Well, I don't know what their reason is, but they're just it's just dumb. Okay. Thank you. I'm done picking on you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Any other commissioners' comments or questions of staff before we vote? Commissioner Ryan or Commissioner Reynolds?
One comment, then I'll make the motion. I just wanted to, I also agree with Fred. I think the performance bond would be a good idea. I think that it would hold them more accountable and there would be money involved and they would want to do it. But other than that, I'm to make a motion to award the bid for nighttime curbside residential solid waste collection services to Waste Management of Michigan at the unit prices bid and direct the city attorney to prepare the contract.
Could I offer a friendly amendment that we require performance standards in the contract?
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Ryan?
I'll second, but the point you raised, I'll second the motion, but when you say performance standards, I mean, I think if you're talking about a bond or something now, you'd almost have to rebid the whole.
I'm not talking about a bond.
Okay.
I'm talking about performance standards that we would require that, for instance, if they leave the street a mess, they have to come back and clean it up within so many hours, or if they have, if they leave it messy too many times in a row, there's some sort of sanctions. And I guess if we have to rebid it, we might have to rebid it. I suspect the successful bidder would be willing to negotiate, however.
I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm just saying it may throw us off track.
But I think our citizens have suffered with a garbage hauler who seems to make errors frequently, that we ought to do something to forestall that. Is there a second? Commissioner Coyne? Oh, you second. Yeah.
So it's her turn to speak.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Commissioner Reynolds?
No, I think we all talked about it for a long time, and I wish that we could make them more accountable, and it took me a long time to get used to this dual stream system, and I also use the Baraga area very often to get my trash, because I never get the recycling right, so I drive my stuff up there, and it's really convenient, and so if anybody has that same problem, I recommend doing the same.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I support it because I think we have to move forward. Among other things, as the narration notes, our contract expires tomorrow, so we do have to move forward. I think the staff has put a lot of time and work into this. I think the commission has put a lot of time and work into it. We've had, as I said before, several work sessions. I think we've had a good relationship with the Marquette County Solid Waste Authority. They've worked with us. We're developing this recycling transfer station, and it's not perfect, and hopefully with the attention it's getting, some of these issues can be dealt with. But the main thing is we've come up with a better system, a system which can save the city some money, and in the long run, that saves the taxpayers or the people who are putting their garbage out to be collected some money. And by getting the recyclables back into the city and Marquette County Solid Waste Authority ownership, I guess you could say, or revenue stream, I think that was an important step forward. I also I think it's important, as Kurt Goodman mentioned, we do have a couple of good drop-off, or we have one good drop-off site now, and we will be having a second one, and I've used that myself several times, and they're very handy. And you still take some organics there too, don't you?
Correct.
Okay.
At a separate dumpster.
Right, a separate dumpster, but they're all right there together.
Yeah.
The one that smells is the organic one.
That's right. Commissioner Coyne?
You sneaked in an amendment there. Could you sneak my little amendment about smaller garbage bags in there too along, maybe?
I can't, but you may.
All right, I'd like to try to do that. And the other thing is just a comment, an observation. I can't remember how long Waste Management has been doing this for us. 20 years, probably. And if you go back the whole 20 years, we've not had this conversation every single year. Sometimes they do a pretty good job in the past. This was probably before recycling, but in the past there haven't been all these huge, continued complaints, legitimate complaints. And to me, it makes me think management. Okay, workers, wherever you go, you can tell good management and bad management almost in 5 seconds. This store is not managed well, or this store is obviously managed well. I think a conversation urging Waste Management to evaluate their service would be appropriate, and to have them work with the city manager and you, Kurt, to try to upgrade their service, which they are providing and making money on. But the message here to me is something's wrong with their company right now. If they're getting all this, they should be here listening and saying, we got to change this. They're a monopoly, but they still should do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, it's been moved by Commissioner Reynolds, seconded by Commissioner Ryan to approve the solid waste management contract for residential pickup. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Anyone opposed to the motion, please say no. The motion is approved unanimously. We will now go back on to the item number 9 would be the fuel depot agreement with the Marquette Area Public Schools. City Clerk, do you have some background you could read on this item?
I think we'll start with 7, 8, and 9. Is it 7, 8, and 9? Powell Township
Pardon?
is 7.
Yes, we do have Powell. It
Yep, okay.
Does it really matter which one we start with? Yes,
All right.
okay. Powell Township, I stand corrected. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Background: in the interest of sharing the use of the city's fuel depot with various local government agencies, the city began partnering with outside agencies in 1992, shortly after construction of the Municipal Service Center. In addition to providing a valuable service to area agencies, the outside users assist the city with operating and maintenance costs associated with operating the fuel depot. Fuel depot agreements cover liability issues as well as reimbursement of city costs for fuel products plus 13 cents per gallon surcharge to help cover operating costs. Subsequent to the creation of this contract, new developments have occurred involving the city's service center and Duke Life Point, putting into question the city's ability to provide this service for the life of the contract. It is recommended that the City Commission consider adding an out clause should the Municipal Service Center not be available to provide fuel. Fiscal effect: the contracts will generate an additional 13 cents per gallon surcharge. Based on annual usage of 54,000 gallons for all users, this action will generate $7,020 in revenue. Recommendation: approve the fuel depot agreement with Powell Township Schools for FY 14-15. Direct staff to negotiate an out clause for the reasons described above and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, what is your desire with this item?
I move we approve the fuel depot agreement with Powell Township Schools for fiscal year 14-15 and direct staff to negotiate an out clause for the reason described above and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Is there a second to the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
Second motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse to approve the fuel agreement with Powell Township Schools, etc. Anything further, Commissioner Ryan?
It is for the benefit of the public. We have the capability of refueling our own police cars, snowplows, equipment, gasoline, and we extend that courtesy to other units of government. And this is an agreement that allows Powell Township Schools to get some fuel for their buses at our depot as well.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, anything further?
Yeah, just a little bit of a further elaboration. Certainly, it's a great opportunity for interlocal agreement between the city and a number of townships and other agencies to certainly make the fuel as affordable as we can. The reason for the out clause is that as we move forward rapidly with the construction of Marquette General Hospital, and that property is potentially for sale, not potentially, will be part of the sale agreement, we may have to terminate that contract early to be able to meet those requirements. So we need to have the out clause and the ability there to manage that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse. Commissioner Coyne?
I'd like to ask the city attorney about the out clause. Would it be prudent for the commission to say 30 days out clause, or an out clause written 30 days after the sale agreement? Because we do not want to get stuck not being able to sell it with having to pay for fuel that we can't provide for them without such a date specific.
I guess I would look to staff when I do the out clause, but my thought was 30 days upon, that we give them 30 days notice.
Okay.
If we're getting close to an agreement and we know at that time what the agreement is, for example, does DLP want to take possession and start removing those tanks immediately, then we can give them a heads up earlier than we would by just waiting until the agreement and the purchase is final. But I would want to know what staff has to say as to how much fuel is in there at all at different times. And so, but that was my thinking, 30 days upon whenever we, deem it necessary to give them that notice.
Thank you.
Is that satisfactory?
Yep.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, to approve the fuel depot agreement with Pueblo Township Schools and include a out clause to cancel the contract prior to the expiration of the contract. All in favor of the motion say yes.
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 Anyone opposed to the motion say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item is a field depot agreement with the Marquette Area Public Schools. Clerk?
Sure, Honor, thank you. In the interest of sharing the use of the city's fuel depot with various local government agencies, the city began partnering with outside agencies in 1992, shortly after construction of the Municipal Service Center. In addition to providing a valuable service to area agencies, the outside users assist the city with operating and maintenance costs associated with operating the fuel depot. Fuel depot agreements cover liability issues as well as reimbursement of the city's costs for fuel products, plus a 13-cent per gallon surcharge to help cover operating costs. Subsequent to the creation of this contract, new developments have occurred involving the city's municipal service center and Duke Life Point, putting into question the city's ability to provide this service for the life of the contract. It is recommended that the City Commission consider adding an out clause should the municipal service center not be able to provide fuel. Fiscal effect: the contracts will generate an additional 13 cents per gallon surcharge based on annual usage of 54,000 gallons for all users. This action will generate $7,020 in revenue. Recommendation: per the fuel depot agreement with the Marquette Area Public Schools for FY 14-15, direct staff to negotiate an out clause for the reasons described above, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, what is your desire with this item? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
I motion to approve the fuel depot agreement with Marquette Area Public Schools for FY 14-15, direct staff to negotiate an out clause to the reasons described above, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Campana?
Second.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, anything further on the motion?
Nothing further. This is mirror image of the previous agreement.
Commissioner Campana, anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay. Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, second by Commissioner Campana to approve the fuel depot agreement with Marquette Area Public Schools for the fiscal year 2014-15. Direct staff negotiating out clause for the reasons described for the reasons that we may sell the property and authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement. All commissioners in favor of the motion say yes.
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 Anyone opposed to the motion say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item is fuel depot agreement with the Elgin Marquette Community Action Board.
Yes, Your Honor, background. In the interest of sharing the use of the city's fuel depot with various local government agencies, the city began partnering with outside agencies in 1992, shortly after construction of the Municipal Service Center. In addition to providing a valuable service to our agencies, the outside users assist the city in operating and maintenance costs associated with operating the fuel depot. The fuel depot agreements cover liability issues as well as reimbursements of the city's cost for fuel products, plus a 13-cent per gallon surcharge to help cover operating costs. Subsequent to the creation of this contract, new developments have occurred involving the city's service center and Duke Life Point, putting into question the city's ability to provide this service for the life of the contract. It is recommended that the City Commission consider adding an out clause should the service center not be able to provide fuel. Fiscal effect: the contracts will generate an additional 13 cents per gallon surcharge based on annual usage of 54,000 gallons for all users. This action will generate $7,020 in revenue. Recommendation: approve the fuel depot agreement with the Marquette Elgin Community Action Board for FY 14-15. Direct staff to negotiate an out clause for the reasons described above and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this agreement? Commissioner Ryan?
I move we approve the fuel depot agreement with Elgin Marquette Community Action Board for fiscal year 14-15 and direct staff to negotiate an out clause and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement.
Is there a second? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, anything further on the motion?
This is now a three-peat, so.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Nope.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Commissioner Reynolds, to approve the fuel depot agreement with the Elgin Marquette Community Action Board for the fiscal year 2014-15. Direct staff negotiate an out clause with the sale of the property and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item we have is item number 11, solid waste fee for 2014-2015 fiscal year. City Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor. Background: the current hauling contract for solid waste collection services expires on September 30th, 2014. Bid packages were sent out to 10 regional vendors, and the bids were publicly displayed and noticed. Bids were opened on August 26, 2014. Recommendations for award have been made. The fee has been calculated based on those recommendations. A breakdown on the proposed fee is attached. Fiscal effect: there is no fiscal effect, as the proposed monthly residential service fee covers the cost of providing the residential solid waste service. The bag fee is set at $1.50 per bag over the life of the contract. The monthly solid waste service fee is reduced by 10 cents, and the cost per bag is increased by 10 cents per bag. This represents an overall 1.6% increase in the average cost of service. Recommendations set the monthly residential solid waste fee at $14.65 for FY 14-15. Alternatives: modify the fee by charging the scope of services as determined by the City Commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this item? Commissioner Campana?
Make a motion to set the monthly residential solid waste fee at $14.65 for fiscal year 2014 through 15.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Ryan?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Campana, seconded by Commissioner Ryan, to set the monthly residential solid waste fee at $14.65 for the fiscal year 2014-2015. Anything further, Commissioner Campana?
Nothing further.
Anything further, Commissioner Ryan?
Very minimal increase. Happy to be able to keep it at that level.
been moved by Commissioner Campana, second by Commissioner Ryan, to set the monthly residential solid waste fee at 14.65 for the fiscal years 2014-2015. All in favor say yes.
Aye. Yes.
Anyone opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a resolution for Section 19 of the State of Michigan Emergency Operation Act. City Clerk, would you read the background information, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. The City of Marquette is eligible for a $100,000 reimbursement for the costs incurred during the 2014 winter freeze through Section 19 of the Emergency Management Act, Act 390, Public Acts of 1976. Fiscal effect. There are no fiscal effects with this action. Recommendation: adopt a resolution in support of the funding available through Section 19 of the Emergency Management Act, Act 390 of Public Acts of 1976 due to the expenditures incurred from the 2014 winter freeze damage, and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this resolution? Commissioner Ryan?
I move we adopt a resolution in support of the funding available through Section 19 of the Emergency Management Act, Act 390, Public Acts of 1976, due to the expenditure occurred from the 2014 winter freeze damage, and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Campana?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Commissioner Campana to adopt the resolution in support of funds available through Section 19 of the Emergency Management Act, and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. Any further, Commissioner Ryan?
Just this falls far short of paying the bills for all the things we had to do last winter, but it does make a contribution, so we're grateful to have that.
Thank you. Commissioner Campana, anything further?
Just we hope to get it.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Ryan, second by Commissioner Campana to adopt a resolution in support of funding available through Section 19 of the Emergency Management Act 390, Public Acts of 1976, due to the expenditures incurred from 2014 winter freeze damage, and authorize the mayor of the city to sign the resolution. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the city manager evaluation. City Clerk, would you read the background material for this item?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. The city charter requires an annual performance evaluation of the city manager. In August, the city commission appointed Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, Commissioner Coyne, and Commissioner Reynolds to the evaluation subcommittee. The subcommittee met to review the city manager's performance and compensation earlier this month. The evaluation was very positive. The manager has successfully met all of the charter requirements for his position, and the majority of commissioners awarded him the highest rating in all other performance categories. Commissioner comments and suggestions have been provided to the city manager for further improvement. In reviewing compensation, we took into account commissioners' recommendations, comparable local positions, other municipalities, and previous salary adjustments. We think the recommended 5% increase is appropriate based upon our review. We also recommended extending the city manager's contract through January 15th, 2020. We feel the city manager's performance this year has been especially noteworthy considering the extraordinary amount of major challenges he met and successfully overcame, to include the Duke Life Point Marquette General Hospital Memorandum of Understanding, Smart Zone, Local Development Finance Authority, Next Michigan Zone, Eagle Mine Transportation Agreement, and Deep Winter Freeze Damage. Fiscal effect: the recommended 5% increase is within the fiscal year for budget for 2014-15, and will bring the manager's salary to $131,046 per year. Recommendation: approve the evaluation subcommittee's recommendation to increase the city manager's salary 5% effective September 29, 2014, and extend his contract through January 15, 2020. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, what is your pleasure with this item? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
Your Honor, I will motion to approve the evaluation subcommittee's recommendation to increase city manager's salary 5% effective September 29, 2014, and extend his contract through January
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Stonehouse, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds, to approve the evaluation subcommittee's recommendation to increase the city manager's salary 5% effective September 29th, 2014, and to extend his contract through January 15th, 2020. Anything further, Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes, I would, Your Honor. I'd like to point out to folks, a couple of things. And one of them certainly is that any one of those events, any one of those actions that was mentioned within the document, particularly the Duke Life Point MOU, the Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority next Michigan, Eagle Mine, the transportation agreement for them, the winter deep freeze actions, any one of those would be an extraordinary event within a year of the city. Within 1 year period of time, to have any one of those events occur would be in itself a totally consuming process and event. To have all of those occur simultaneously is, I would suggest, is unheard of, probably the most difficult period of history that the city of Marquette has had in terms of those types of challenges. And I cannot give enough accolades to our city manager in being able to do what he did in the midst of that. And obviously, it's not a one-man show. Obviously, one man did not do it. But somebody's got to be standing there in the middle of the circus. And that's certainly what our manager was doing, was causing the actions around him to be able to deal with that great multitude of actions. So, again, I feel very strongly that this is a good recommendation, a solid one, that not only provides some financial reward, but provides, I think, a very strong vote of confidence by extending the contract. I would point out for the public that the contract with the city manager allows him to break the contract with 30 days' notice. It allows the city commission to terminate the manager with, I think, 3 months of pay, and that's it. So it's not a contract that is forever bound in, that we've got the person forever and ever. It's very much of a two-way agreement and a two-way street. But I do think it sends a very strong message of our support of the manager and our very deepest appreciation for the tremendous work that he's done over the last year. Has done, in fact, since he's been here. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Stonehouse. Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, excuse me. Commissioner Reynolds?
Well, I echo what Fred said, and I had the opportunity to also be on the subcommittee with Commissioner Stonehouse and Commissioner Coyne, and the other two comments, other than the obvious things that we pointed out, is being new to the commission and being on here for a year. I appreciate a lot of things that Bill does, and one of them includes the open dialogue that he continues to have with us as commissioners, and the amount of information we receive via email, and the fact that we are always up to date on everything. It rarely is a situation where a constituent calls me and I haven't gotten an email about it already, and I appreciate that on a lower level. And secondly, on a lower level, I recently went to the digital conference with Mayor Nemi and with Bill Vita, and things that come out of those things are the people you meet and the connections you make, and just watching Bill constantly try to push Marquette on people and get them to come up here and visit, and just always looking out for the city of Marquette. And that's why I also agreed with this recommendation, and I think it's well deserved.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Cambenzi?
I just have a question for the subcommittee. If there's a 3-month severance clause, I guess, what was the motivation to extend the contract out almost 6 years?
The motivation was to send the strongest possible message that we could send, that we deeply appreciate what he has done for us and continues to do for us. That was the motivation.
Any further, Commissioner Cambenzi? Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, it's kind of a problem for me in that this, it incorporates three things. Number one, and I understand why, it makes sense, but it incorporates the manager's performance, it incorporates a pay increase, and it incorporates a contract extension. I agree with the evaluation. I think this is, he and I haven't always agreed on everything, but I think this was his finest year in Marquette, and I'm very pleased to say that. I think the pay increase is appropriate. I have a problem, too, with the length of the contract. I think, all of us sit here, we're given 3-year contracts, and I don't think whoever's sitting in that chair should have a 5-year contract. I think it takes too much out of the hands of future commissions, especially with 3 of us walking out the door in a month and a half. So, you know, it's a concern for me that I just, you know, it doesn't allow future commissions the opportunity to, you know, what are we going to do? Extend it for 7 and 8 and 9 years? You know, how far can we go with this? So it's a concern for me. But I do feel he's had a very good year for all the reasons stated, and has provided outstanding leadership on many important issues, and certainly deserves to be evaluated at the highest level.
Thank you, Commissioner Rand. Commissioner Coyne?
Just a couple comments. Along with what Commissioner Reynolds said, one of my son-in-laws was at that IT meeting and called me and said, "What's with your city manager? He is talking to everybody, hustling them, trying to get them to move to Marquette." That was an unsolicited call. I didn't put that in the evaluation, but I think that says, you know, that he was really doing a good job down there. I was also on the committee. I think we based our recommendations on a very good system that we have of evaluating the city manager. Last year a committee developed that, and they did an outstanding job, and it really allowed us to have a very comprehensive look at the city manager. And Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse left off one other accomplishment, which was not easy to accomplish, and that was to deal with a budget that was $2 million in the hole because of loss of taxes. And with a plan, a very clever plan of about every 3 months looking at it to see where are we behind, are we getting some of those taxes that we didn't think we were going to get. So that was an outstanding bit of work on his entire team. And I think one of the reasons, as Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse said, for the 5 years, in reality it gives the city manager a little security, because in 2 more meetings there will be 3 totally new people here. You have no idea where they're going to be on the map. And then in another year there'll be 2 more. So in 2 years there'll be five people here that are brand new. So it gives him some security, and and because of the cancellation clauses, they can still fire him or he can quit. So it's just a way of recognizing him for this outstanding job. And the only problem I have is he has set such high standards. I don't know how you're going to get anything but average for next year, and frankly, I'm almost not looking forward to another year like this, because these were huge issues. They not only took a lot of work for you and your team, but it was a lot of work for us. And I'm just not looking forward to another year like this, because it was amazingly hard but amazingly positive in its accomplishments. And of these 7, had you not accomplished one of them, I think that would be a real black mark on you, and it just shows what, really, because we put the screws to you, literally. We want this to happen, we want this to happen, and you made it all happen. So good luck next year, okay? And great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Commissioner Campana?
I too am also in favor of this recommendation. I think that the city manager works very hard for the city. I think he really cares about the success of the city. He's not a one-man show, but I really think he's a one-man economic developer. He really cares that the city does become something better. There are some people that complain about the salary, perhaps, but I really think it's very fair for what he does and what his responsibilities are. So I'm very pleased with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Campana. Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I was just going to add, as one who sat on the committee working with Duke LifePoint, when we say that the manager and staff spent hundreds of hours, it's not an exaggeration. I mean, this was clearly, I think a lot of people think that Duke LifePoint just showed up with an offer and we said, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. That's not the way it worked. And the committee had a role in it, but the staff had a much bigger role. And there was really a tremendous amount of work that went into it to get us to the point we are. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to apply the same philosophy here that I do on the budget. You know, you get to the budget and you've got a zillion items, you know, and you may have something you don't like, but you got to either vote for the budget or not. In this case, as I say, I have a concern with just the general principle of having anybody having a 5-year contract. But, you know, on the other hand, the other two items look pretty good, so I'll support this as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Cambenzi?
Well, I can agree with most of what's been said up here, but I think I don't want to bind any further commission beyond the three of you leaving, any further commission beyond me, and then another cycle. If there's a 3-month clause, I don't understand. I guess I'm having a hard time wondering why we're doing this. Everyone does a great job. This seems out of the ordinary, I guess, to propose. I haven't seen the 3-month clause. Is this something new? Is there language that we can look at? Has that been presented to us, or?
I can address that. It's been presented at some point or another, certainly. I don't know if it's probably before you were on the commission. It certainly is available. The 3-month clause, I echo many of the things that have been said tonight. I, for one, am very pleased to see a three-year extension of the contract, because what it does is it tells the manager that we're pleased with his performance, that we want to keep him here, and whatever strength that has to keep him here, I think we're well served by it. There is a 3-month clause where we can dismiss him without cause, and he would have a 3-month severance. And there's been many more severances. I think the severance of one of the previous city managers, I don't know, I don't mean to put the city attorney on the spot, but I think it was a 180-day severance.
I wasn't involved with that, so I'm not sure.
Okay. He dances out of it once again. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But if there's cause, then there is no severance. I don't think, theoretically, yes, it binds the commission, but it also binds the manager, and neither is bound irrevocably. And I think that's a good system. We don't have this huge, generous golden parachute that a person would get if we were determining his service for without clause. And typically, this kind of position, it is an at-will position. And I think we provide the severance because the manager's position is out at the vagaries of the political process, and it may have you could have a set of 7 people up here for some reason don't like the way he operates or his style, and he would suffer from it as a result of that. And so I think that's why in these types of contracts with city managers and some other CEOs, I think you do have a severance, a 3-month severance. But it's I look at it as like I said, the 3 years provides us some comfort that we'll keep a very valuable employee, and it provides us some comfort that will encourage the employee to stay here. And so I wholeheartedly support the 3-year extension. I've worked closely with the manager this year, being mayor, and I've always joked that, or in the past we've said we have a full plate. This year I've said that we have a full platter, and from the paragraph of the things that have been accomplished, that certainly is true. And I've been associated with City Marquette since 1975, first as an intern in the city manager's office. My master's in public administration the emphasis is in city management, so I've been studying that for 40-some years. And this is one of the best city managers I've seen. And perhaps part of it is because he's the only foreign city manager we've had. And I would certainly like to see us keep him. And I agree with Commissioner Coyne. It's a high bar to set, but I think he'll perform admirably well this next year. Perhaps there won't be as many conspicuous projects that have to be going, except all of these are going to go into the next year for development of one sort or another. So I think he can keep his platter or his plate on the shelf and keep his platter handy. So with that, any further comment, Commissioner Campbell?
If I could just finish up, with all due.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. With all due respect, I think the evaluation was probably, I've only gone through 2, but it was very positive. With all due respect to the comments made about being loyal and showing the city manager that we believe in him, I think I have to look at this and say, is it fiscally responsible to the people that put me here in office? And I don't think a contract going out this far, the elected positions that come in, that get that decision making after all of us are long gone, I don't think that's fair, and I'm not willing to kind of overlook that, even though it was a very tough year, and we persevered through it. So with that is my reason I will be voting against this. I do think that, one, I'm not comfortable with the clause and certainly the lawsuit that this city has went through not too many years ago, but also that I think, to be fair to the taxpayers, I think extending the contract out almost 6 years is a liability. Thank you.
Anything further, Commissioners? Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, seconded by Commissioner Reynolds, to approve the Evaluation Subcommittee's recommendation to increase the city manager's salary 5% effective September 29th, 2014, and to extend his contract through January 15th, 2020. All in favor of the motion say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone opposed to the motion say no.
No.
The motion is approved 6-1. The next item on the agenda is the city attorney's evaluation. City Clerk, would you please read the background information?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Excuse me. The city charter requires an annual performance evaluation of the city attorney. In August, the city commission appointed Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse, Commissioner Coyne, and Commissioner Reynolds to the evaluation subcommittee. The overall evaluation was very positive. The city attorney has successfully met all the city charter requirements for his position. No increase in compensation was considered because the attorney is paid on a retainer basis, and the amount of his compensation for legal services is approved as part of the annual budget. Fiscal effect done by this action. Recommendation approve the city attorney's annual performance evaluation. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Commissioners, what is your desire regarding this item?
I don't know if the committee wants to make the motion.
Commissioner Reynolds is right. Okay. Commissioner
I
Reynolds.
approve the city attorney's annual performance evaluation. I move we approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Campana? Second. Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Reynolds, seconded by Commissioner Campana, to approve the city attorney's annual performance evaluation. Anything further, Commissioner Reynolds?
My only comment was I realized we were adhering to the charter as far as the evaluation process goes for the city attorney, but I kind of thought it would be more beneficial just some qualitative stuff that I could, I could obviously write my own notes and say this is my comments to you, Ron, but we had qualitative measures where we measured bill by, and that was my only comment. But obviously Ron does a great job, and we love having him here.
Thank you. Commissioner Campana, anything further?
I think the attorney does a very good job. I'm happy with it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the city attorney's performance and with the system of having him represent us and having really his firm available to provide backup support when needed. I think a lot of people only see the city attorney sitting here at a meeting. He did institute a different kind of report for us a while back, which I think is really helpful. But, he does provide a lot of assistance to many city departments, department heads. He's involved in labor negotiations. He's involved in a lot of other issues and provides good advice for the commission as well. So I'm just very pleased that he's serving as our city attorney.
Commissioner Coyne?
I also would say, second all of those things, and I really do appreciate your reports, Ron, and that gives us a really good way of knowing what you're doing and what the problems are, and that's been very helpful, so thank you for doing that.
Commissioner Coyne, any other commissioners? Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
I can only speak highly to what the city attorney provides us on a continuing basis. And as Commissioner Coyne said, and rather Commissioner Ryan, we're really only seeing here publicly the very tip of the iceberg from what he does and how he does it. And the reports that we do get, I think, are terrifically useful in helping to get a feel for what's going on in the city all of the time. You know, one of the difficulties as a city commissioner, I think, one of the perceived difficulties is that the public only sees us here at a meeting. But there are so many other instances where there's work going on continuously that often involves the city attorney and interplay with him. And the advice he provides and the method and the timeliness of it has certainly been spot on. And again, I can only give him the highest accolades.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Anything further, commissioners? I guess I'd just like to weigh in. And typically, the way I evaluate the services attorney is what comfort level I have. As commissioners, we have a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of opportunities for us to perhaps make errors and mistakes, and I'm very comfortable with the services provided by our attorney. He makes our job much more easier. I have no fear of us going awry, because he counsels us often, and if we make a mistake, he's there to let us know, and that gives me great comfort. And I'm pleased that the service we receive from the attorney, not only the attorney but his firm. When the attorney is absent, we have a competent attorney filling in for him at every juncture. So it's really a good situation. Anything further? Any commissioners? It has been moved by, let's see, Commissioner Reynolds, seconded by Commissioner Campana, to approve the evaluation of the city attorney. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed say no. The motion is approved unanimously. The next item and last item is a request from the Transportation Subcommittee to be on the agenda, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse for elucidation.
Yes, Your Honor. Just as a quick update and a quick request, I think. Transportation Subcommittee has been working with the Greater Transportation Committee, if you will, made up of folks from the townships as well as Marquette County Road Commission, some of the concerned landowners and other government folks, looking at trying to come up with a way of supporting a bypass around the city of Marquette, around largely Marquette Township, and then coming out somewhere near the Midway location out on US 41. And the purpose of that would primarily be to take the north-south truck traffic coming down from the Big Bay area, the mine area, and get it safely through the city or around the city and safely past the bulk of the heavy M28 US 41 corridor. There's been some challenges in getting all of the municipalities to agree to a common approach to that. City of Marquette, about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago now, sent a letter to the Road Commission with a proposal of how we could best accommodate that from the city perspective. The Road Commission accepted the proposal, though they chose not to act on it because they did not have complementary proposals from the other municipalities, from the two townships. That was important because they want to tie all that in a bundle and be able to take that then to Lansing and try and find funding to do the bypass. So we think that this is a very important thing or challenge that we have, and how to best overcome that. So what we are requesting the Commission do is to send a letter to both Negaunee and Marquette Townships boards, as well as the Marquette County Road Commission board, and requesting a joint meeting of all four bodies. And hopefully the four bodies, the three elected bodies and then the appointed Road Commission board, would be able, face-to-face, to be able to come up with a joint proposal that all of us could support. We would request as part of that letter, very specifically, that this would be only a meeting of those folks that were specifically identified. In other words, the elected board of Marquette Township, of Negaunee Township, the appointed board of the Road Commission, and our city commission, and no staff involvement at all. Just the elected folks, because after all, we're the ones that bear the burden, we're the ones that were elected directly by the citizens, and see if we can't work out an arrangement that would solve the problem for all of us. So that's what we are proposing the commission do.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Stonehouse. Do any other subcommittee members want to address that? Commissioner Coyne?
Well, I would like to make such a motion that we do exactly what Fred just outlined.
Okay. Is there support for that motion? Second for the motion? Commissioner Campana? Oh, okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Coyne, seconded by Commissioner Campana, to send a letter to the other governmental units requesting that a meeting of the elected officials or policymakers only without staff be held to hammer out the transportation issues. Anything further, Commissioner Coyne?
Well, often when we get to this point where we just sit down with boards, that stuff happens. We've had difficulty because some of the other boards have not really dealt with this. We've been dealing with administrators who have their opinions, and we're all kind of elected people that would like to solve this problem to our mutual benefit, because the problem is going to basically help everybody, and we would like to get that done and move on and try to have this happen, because every party will benefit if we can get a road around the congested areas in the two townships and our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coyne. Commissioner Campana?
I'm actually glad that we're discussing this and that we might be doing something on it, because this morning I got cornered by a guy who lives on Lakeshore, and he's not happy with the fact that we have truck after truck after truck going through, and he says, why is this happening? And, I thought you guys were working on it, so now I can go back and tell him something positive, I hope. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Commissioner Campana. Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I think the meeting is a good idea, and I think I think having the boards there, but I'm not sure that it's a good idea to tell the other people who they can bring with them. I think, for example, the County Road Commission wants to have their manager, whatever Jim Iwanicki's title is. I'm not speaking for them, but I presume they would want to have him there, and we might want to have our city manager sitting there with us so I mean, I think it's fine if you characterize it as a meeting of boards, but to suggest that no other people be there, I think that just might be a turnoff for some of the other groups.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
It was interesting that in conversation with Jim, he was very supportive of that. I think we can dictate from our commission who we want there. So, and I think we would be supportive of that also.
Well, and that's my point. I don't think we should dictate. I don't think we gain anything by dictating to others who they can bring. That's what I'm doing.
Any further, commissioners? It's been moved by Commissioner Coyne, seconded by Commissioner Campana, to establish a meeting on the transportation issues among the elected boards and policymakers without staff. Any further, any commissioners? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed to the motion, please say no. The motion is approved unanimously. I would assume the city manager will effectuate the appropriate communications on our behalf. Thank you. Well, we've come to the end of the business portion of the agenda, I believe. Comments by the Commission. We'll start with Commissioner Cambenzi.
I just have a quick comment. It kind of goes after what Dr. Pura kind of approached us with, and that is just a concern about the roundabout and the bridge over 41. Over the last several weeks, I think I've had a lot of people come up to me with kind of the same sentiment, that they think it's wonderful the hospital staying in the city, but they usually have a concern or a few concerns that they hope will iron out before the agreement becomes finalized. And one certainly is the roundabout and the bridge over 41. What is that going to look like? How are those businesses, how are those homes going to be affected? Someone mentioned the Norlight Nursing Center right there, that for getting in and out, getting to and from, what is that going to look like? I think the other thing is there's a growing concern that our public works facility, can that really be planned, executed, and built in a matter of 6 to 8 months? I think that that's a concern for a lot of people. What are we doing with services? Are we going to contract out services? I think people right now, even though we're just getting into the winter before it, it's a huge part of our city, and it's something that I think a lot of people feel they pay higher taxes to live here to get that guaranteed timely service, and so they're wondering, what that's going to look like, and kind of are we giving up too much, sacrificing the services that they expect from us? And do we have a good plan for that? So that's something I think is on people's mind. And the other thing I've heard a lot about is what is going to be the fate of the old hospital. And I think that's something that a lot of the neighbors in that neighborhood, they're pretty worried they're going to get stuck with the building. So that's something that people have asked me to, please pay attention to. So I just wanted to publicly state that I have heard the citizens that have approached me. I do think you have valid concerns, and I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners on how we can best deal with those three situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cambezi. Commissioner Campana?
Also in regards to the bypass future construction, I've had people comment to me also. Again, I've never liked the Grove Street bypass intersection. I'm glad to see it potentially being improved. Someone said, why not just take the roundabout and put it down there? Save yourself $5 million. That way you have access to Chippewa Square, you could have access to the hospital. Then the bypass, which is really no longer a bypass, because there's like 2 stoplights on it, and it was meant to bypass the city, it would still be, it would flow a little better. I think basically if I was to build today, I'd put a roundabout there at Grove Street bypass intersection. But I would think that I'd want to see with the highway engineers, guys that really know what this is all about. They would have the best recommendation. So I'm sure there's a lot to be said before this actually happens. Somehow a bridge over the highway, unless there's access to Chippewa Square, those people are going to be cut off, and I basically don't think that's the right thing to do. I could hammer on the recycling. I really don't want to. Enough's been said tonight, but I don't like the terms rigid and fiber. I prefer paper and plastics. I wish they'd keep it that way. And number 2, I do wish that we could pick them all up at once, because I got a big garage, so I can store this stuff, but people that don't, that stuff piles up. So that's all I'm going to say. Doesn't mean much. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Commissioner Campana. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse.
I have no doubt that hospital and hospital planning will be occupying this commission for the next couple of years, and that everybody on it and everybody in the city and every so-called engineer we might have floating around will be taking pen to paper and saying, we could do this or we should do that, and it's just going to be certainly a squirrel cage of intellectual activity. But what I would suggest to everybody is just to step back, take a really deep breath, and understand that things are moving quickly. Things had to move very quickly with the agreement for the MOU, and that the design features that will be necessary to put the entire package together have yet to come. And that certainly every group that would be affected, and Chippewa Square would be an example of that, would be brought into the process as that design feature is addressed. So we're all going to have to be a little bit patient, I guess, as all this work goes forward. It's going to be happening quick, and certainly the DPW will be a major impact part of this. We know that. But when you balance it out and you say Marquette General Hospital, services building, Marquette General Hospital, services building goes away, because that is the huge value difference between them. How we come up with replacing the service building and the facilities and the operational motif is a whole different opportunity, and nothing has to be the way it was. Everything can change, so we've got to step back, let everybody work through it, and then you'll see, I think, a far different take to everything that right now might seem to us to be an absolutely insurmountable difficulty. And we all know that the crossing at Grove Street has been a debacle. It's one of the most dangerous, certainly in the Upper Peninsula. So anything that happens there will certainly be to the good, as long as we're able to assure proper access to everybody that needs to have proper access. I would thank everybody on the staff for the tremendous work that they've been doing recently, particularly as it affected all of those issues that we talked about, hospital only being one of them. The scary thing is what you have done already is only just a shadow of what you will be doing, because things will be moving very quickly, and you will have to be able to deal with that as it comes. Commissioner Conbenzi asked some good questions relating to the boathouse. I know that list will go to staff, and I look forward to seeing the responses and the answers to it. Other than that, Your Honor, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse. Commissioner Reynolds.
Well, I echo Fred on his last part. I did also, this was the first reading of the lease, but I did have some issues with the lease in particular, and I think Commissioner Conbenzi was spot on with some of the things, particularly the bike path, the road, who pays for it, sewer, who pays for it, legal description not included, things like that. But I know that it'll come back for a second reading, and I hope that those things are answered by, that Commissioner Conbenzi brought up. The only other two things are that I agree with Mr. Jim. I think we need some cake. So next time I'm going to bring in cupcakes for those kids, just 2 of them. But I'm going to do it, so hold me to that. And the other thing, I'm going to be a nerd and say it's my husband's birthday, so happy birthday, because he watches this at home and watches me.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner Ryan?
I'm just going to say I think we've dealt with 2 very important proclamations today, and they kind of go by quickly, but one had to do with domestic violence, and it's certainly been in the news all over the country recently, but this is not a new issue. It's something that's gone on for many years, and I'm really pleased that we have an organization in Marquette, the Women's Center, that is concerned about it, and you know, we're just very fortunate, because this is an extremely serious problem, and it's just good to know that we've had this group that's been working here for 40 years, and they do an outstanding job, and we're certainly grateful for them. And also the Fire Prevention Week. Our fire department does a great job of getting out to the schools and talking to kids and learning all about drop and roll, I think is the expression. Stop, drop, and roll, yes. And so that's very good, but it is true that this is the time for people to think about house fires, and I think I have like 8 smoke detectors in my house, so I would encourage everybody to get their smoke detectors, make sure they're working, and keep them in good working condition, because it is a huge safety factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Coyne.
Well, I just have 2 things. One, I want to thank Dr. Pura, who I can't see. He's hiding behind the dais there. But thank you for voicing your concerns. You had talked to me earlier, and in turn I had mentioned this to the city manager. And I think one of the issues that you're most concerned about is input, because of right now you have no input, and I think, is it fair, Mr. Manager, to say you would be happy to work with them and keep you in the loop and have you part of that planning? And I can surely understand why you're anxious about it, so I would hope that, is that correct, you will do that, so great. And I'll just make a point about 7th Street. 7th Street is an access site to Northern, and to have no access off of US 41 doesn't make very much sense. And to Mr. Cambenzi's remarks, the only plans I've seen is a map of the site where Duke Life Point is going to build, and somebody drew a black line across Grove Street on the map. That's the bridge. I mean, I have no. I mean, so somebody in Tennessee probably did that, or probably somebody at MDOT did that, because I think this is MDOT's pushing, and they need to have a lot of input. And to me, it's not really totally fair to be overly critical with somebody with a black marker going, this will be a bridge, and that's really not a plan. I mean, that's just doesn't make any sense. So you have to have a lot of input and a lot of cooperation. And let us know if that doesn't happen, Dr. Pura. And just if I could address Commissioner Reynolds here, I have a question for just 2 cupcakes, that's all you're going to bring? That
There's
doesn't,
only 2 kids.
yeah,
so
but
I'm
there's 7 of us. Well, never mind.
I don't even know
That's-
who's diabetic
all right.
and not.
All right.
What if there's only 1 kid?
He gets 2 cupcakes.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein. I'd like to wish Anthony Reynolds a happy birthday on behalf of the city of Marquette and as mayor on behalf of the city. I'd also like to, I neglected to do it when we had the agenda items, but I'd like to thank our city manager and city attorney subcommittee who went through the evaluations and sat down with the manager and the attorney and reviewed the evaluations. It's extra work over and above what the rest of us had to do, so thank you for that. I would like to point out that Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse has been recognized by Northern Michigan University as a distinguished alumni, and certainly I think the award is well deserved. And he not only distinguishes himself on the city commission, but he also distinguishes himself on the community and distinguishes himself for his university, which benefits greatly from that. Thank you. Lastly, on hospital planning, people, I think we can repeat this over and over again, but I think it bears repeating. The project moved fast. There's a lot of schematics, I think, that were put out there. Certainly that is not the final design. We want the design to work to the best of all people involved, and I would encourage you to send your comments to the city manager, visit him during open office hours, stop in his office at any time. The one stipulation I would say is keep the sarcastic comments and the snide comments to justify your positions out of it, otherwise you lose total credibility. Certainly in my case you do. I think our manager has a little more patience for those things, but I certainly don't. I guess that's probably a nice segue into the manager letting us know when his next office hours are and any comments he has.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, first let me just say thank you for the generosity this evening with my evaluation. I deeply appreciate it. I know my family does. I approach every meeting as potentially my last, depending on the mood of the commission and maybe how well I'm doing or I'm not doing. And it sends a strong message, and I appreciate the extension of my contract, but it won't in practice change the way I behave or the commitment I intend to bring to the job. I understand I need to earn that trust with each and every action I take, and if I ever fail the people of Marquette or my commission, it won't be for a lack of energy or trying to do the things that I believe are right. So I deeply appreciate that. I wanted to just take a moment to thank everybody who extended their condolences this last week to my family. Most folks know it was kind of a rough week last week, and I had come home to Marquette to enjoy the privilege of service here, as well as to be here for what inevitably transpired. And I'd just like to say thank you to each of the members who reached out and permitted me to work through what is an inevitable journey I know we all have to face at some point. I've heard everything this evening, and I want to also for Dr. Pura, the MOU, it's important for the public to remember, is an agreement to come to an agreement. It's not a plan. It's not a final document. And there's nothing in there that removes the requirement for DLP or the city to work through all of the regular public processes that we're committed to. So as we work through the designing, as we work through the public hearings and the notices and the communication, there's going to be fertile opportunity to stay involved. And we're absolutely committed to the same public processes we've used for all the other projects, and we'll look forward to working with the folks from Chippewa Square to help find the right solution and the best fit for everybody. I know that's true also for DLP. Folks might recall when they stepped up, they view this as an opportunity to really build more beauty and an iconic structure downtown, and I don't think they'd want to do that in a jarring way or in a way that would necessarily create disconnects with other members of the community. So it's tempting, I think, for human beings to imagine once the ink is dry on an agreement like that all of a sudden there's going to be this flurry of activity and shovels are going to go in the ground and things like that. And that's actually the easiest part of the process to manage, because that presumes you have an answer already. And as part of that long negotiation we went through with DLP, a lot of the organizations that we would normally engage in, a lot of the kind of community discussion that we would normally engage, we really couldn't get out in front of that negotiation with DLP. You could imagine other jurisdictions would feel slighted if some of the same organizations that serve us serve them, and if there were perceived to be folks taking an early side or taking an action that might preempt other kind of discussion. It was very tentative, and it's very challenging to manage through that process. The unfortunate consequence was a lot of the things that the public expects to see now are really only now being kicked off in earnest. So we anticipated some things, and that's what you really saw in that MOU, is kind of the grand idea about how some of these things will work. But it really comes down now to the city engineers, the partners, whether they're with our jurisdictions that are co-located in the city, or whether it's with our partners in the Road Commission or MDOT or the Federal Highway Service or other community partners, to really sit down and start trying to find that right fit. And there won't be a shovel that goes in the ground until we're confident that we get there, and that we get there through a public process. So we're absolutely committed to that. And again, glad to have any kind of input. Folks who'd like to come into the office and share that, come to community office hours, send email, send telephone calls. We understand sometimes the urgency is hard to separate from the message, so we'll be glad to listen to it however it might come in, but we'll look forward to hearing from everybody. Our next community office hours, Your Honor, the second Wednesday in October. It'll be at 10 to 12 in the community conference room on the first floor of Peter White Public Library. And as usual, we're very interested in hearing from everybody about their views, how to make Marquette better, and if we're not doing a good enough job, how we might be able to address that and improve. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Manager. That, we're adjourned.